In this video, I'm gonna give an overview of the Myers Briggs personality test, otherwise known as the Myers Briggs Type Indicator, or MBTI. So I actually have credentials on this through the EarHab organization, also known as I Read Half a Book. So I'm halfway through this book. This one is more about the history than it is about the test deeply itself. Really just kind of want to do a practical overview of the test in general. So I'll do a history on the video on the history of that sometime. Because I feel like a lot of people have misconceptions about the different letters and how it all works. So for right now, just gonna do a
practical overview
so that you guys can get it in your silly little goose brains. Love working on these rigs together. Hey, those are my rigs.
Huh?
Myers Briggs. Yes. Man, sometimes I feel like we just don't understand each other. It's almost like we have different frameworks or we process information differently. Yeah, I think you're right. You know what? We should make like a quiz of a bunch of questions, and the way people answer the questions tells them what their framework is like. That is a great idea. What would we call it though? I think we have our answer. So, I remember I was introduced to the Myers-Briggs test my freshman year of college in a career development class, but my burning passion didn't come alive until I was studying abroad in Lima, Peru in 2016.
Story time!
So I studied abroad in Lima, which was amazing and beautiful. But truthfully, I was just not ready with the language to the point where everything I heard out of anyone's mouth, when you can't even distinguish a single word. So after attempting to communicate with humans, I sadly avoided most human interaction and spent a lot of time alone in my room. Obviously, this was quite
delicious.
Hola, Sara. Repite más despacio. No sé. It just takes too much brain power to connect with people. It makes me feel less valuable as a person when I don't have my normal identity of being someone with good communication skills. I guess I'll just turn to the internet to make me feel better. So, spent a lot of time on the internet. This led to me at some point re-stumbling upon the test, retaking it, and just being mind blown by the results. And basically taking it way too far. I read all the profile descriptions and I was super curious about what types my friends were, so I made this status. Obviously, this was not actually for a school project, but I considered it a personal project of mine. I just didn't really give that detail.
It's just a project for me.
I wanted to see real life examples of the profiles so I could make it more concrete in my brain. I felt like a mad scientist. A madic scientist. So overall, I'm sure you're aware that based on your answers to the Myers-Briggs test, you are dominant in one of 16 personality types. So the goal is to allow you to understand your framework and explore your personality, including your likes, dislikes, strengths, weaknesses, possible career preferences,
and also how you taste. What? But first,
3 things that are important for you to know. As I stated in my first video, no type is better than any other type. Myers-Briggs type can change over time, unlike the Enneagram. Remember that house example? Like I said in the other video, the Enneagram is the house you're born into. The Myers-Briggs is which room you prefer to stay in that house. You probably won't relate to every single little descriptor in your profile. I mean, I wouldn't say I'm very argumentative. Like, remember that one time we were gonna go eat and you said Indian and I said Mexican and then you said Chinese and I said okay. So this is wrong and I'm right. So to look for examples of this, I actually asked my parents, hey, when you read your profile descriptions, was there anything in there you felt like you didn't relate to? And I asked them at the same time. We were in the living room. I don't live with my parents, by the way. I was visiting at home, even though it's totally okay if you live with your parents because you can save a lot of money, but I don't live in Nashville. Should I not tell people where I live? Doesn't matter. I have like 100 subscribers. My mom commented that the INTJ personality profile, which is my dad, says clueless in romance. And my mom said she disagreed. Isn't that nice?
Yucky!
Just kidding, they're super cute. So, the way the test works is the type is 4 letters. So you tend to swing either extroverted or introverted, intuitive or sensing, feeling or thinking, and perceiving or judging. So I'll be explaining what these words actually mean throughout the rest of this video. Again, we can all identify with all of the characteristics of the types. It's kind of like being right or left-handed. Of course, you use both your hands, but this one is stronger. It's the first one you're likely to use, and it's the one you're more comfortable using. Extrovert versus introvert. I can't tell you how many times I've heard an extrovert say, well, I don't know if I'm an extrovert because I really do enjoy being alone. Of course, I know you're not a needy psychopath who needs to be with people every second of every day. Sarah! 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 Wait, I'm coming! Wait. You're lonely? You okay? Yeah, I'm fine. Are you okay? Nope, take your time. Are you okay? You're good. Are you okay? Nor is it true that introverts don't like people. If you think that,
You're be dumb. You're be dumb.
you're be dumb. Let's say we as humans are batteries. Extroverts recharge when they're with other people. Introverts recharge when they're alone. So both types can definitely enjoy bigger social functions, but the extrovert is more likely to get more and more energy as the night goes on. There usually comes a point sooner where the introvert's brain says,
I think the emotional energy expended in the stimulus and stuff for the day.
Love you guys. Bye.
fun fact that intro or extroversion isn't always social. It actually applies to a broader range of their general environments. For example, excessive noise, motion, or intrusive lighting can be more overwhelming for introverts. And while this can sometimes make them too sensitive to their environments, they're also able to pick up on cues a little more quickly, making them really great at reading a lot of situations. Also, there can be a misconception that extroverts aren't as deep as introverts.
Don't say that because extra hurts my feelings.
In fact, I intuitively perceive that extra hurts my feelings. Next! This one seems to be the hardest to understand for people. Intuitive versus sensing. How we process information. This percentage is a little more unequal, where about 75% of the world are sensors. Sensor? I hardly know her! About 25% of people are intuitives. So sensors tend to focus on the present or the past. They're very here and now people, take things at face value, i.e. sensors, experiencing the world and processing information with their 5 senses. They value common sense. They especially like ideas that have practical applications. They tend to notice details and be very aware of their surroundings. So intuitive people tend to think about the future a lot and different possibilities. Also tend to process information through impressions and patterns. They gather knowledge less at face value and more so reading in between the lines. So sensors care what happened, intuitives care why, what does it mean? They really value inspiration, imagination, tend to think more abstractly and see the big picture. So for example, if a bunch of sensing dominant people are hanging out, they're likely telling stories about experiences they had and things that happened to them, sharing facts about their interests, their likes, their dislikes, or a lot of times doing a fun activity together. So obviously all of these things intuitives do also. But it would not be uncommon to have a bunch of intuitives hang out and discuss theoretical, philosophical, philosophy theory, sitting around and theorizing about
Different philosophies.
it doesn't have to have any practical application. It'd be really common to have a group of intuitives sitting around and talking about what the most ideal versions of ourselves would look like, or how we think we would act if we were on a reality TV show. Basically a lot of what if situations. Sensors say what is, intuitives say what if. Again, just tendencies. Both these things have their pros and cons. For example, I lean very intuitive. So sometimes I think about so many new possibilities that I never actually make them a reality or implement any of them. Whereas for sensors, if they've always done something a certain way and they have proof of how things go if they do it that way, maybe less likely to want to try and think of a new way to do something. Don't want to get intuitive or anything.
But here's a cheesy skit.
Let me show you this really cool practical way to cut an apple. Wow, that is really cool. You know the saying, an apple a day keeps the doctor away? What if every time someone who ate an apple every day, they're walking past someone who's a doctor, and what if they actually had a force field around them where they blew the doctor away and he couldn't be anywhere near them? And then what if every time that happened, the doctor got hurt, and then everyone gathers around them and they're like, help, someone call a doctor. But like, he's the doctor, so they can't call him. But what if they did call him anyway? And then he gets all these calls to his cell phone, and he can't even answer it because there's so many calls coming in, and because he's the doctor, and he would just be like really confused, and he wouldn't know what to do. Wouldn't that be crazy? That would be crazy. Speaking of thinking versus feeling. Important. Feelers aren't brainless, and thinkers aren't heartless. And it's really important not to confuse feeling with emotion. Everyone has emotions about the decisions they make. And don't confuse thinking with intelligence. So remember, this is talking about how you prefer to make decisions. Do you like to focus more on impersonal facts and objectivity, or do you lean more towards personal concerns and the other people involved in the decision? So what's common is to make a decision based on your first preference and then test that using the other preference to see what you might not have thought about.
So for example,
I'm a feeler. Just kidding.
but I am.
After high school, had to decide where to go to college, and I felt the most excited about going to Indiana University.
I wanted to go there.
So happenstance on top of that, they were a great school with a great music scene. And 3 hours from home. Thinkers do tend to enjoy technical and scientific fields where logic is really important. They're more likely to tell the truth in a blunt way, even if it hurts your feelings, because they believe that's important. And they tend to look for logical solutions and explanations to most situations in their life. So feelers believe they make the best decisions by weighing what everybody cares about involved, typically more concerned with doing whatever will establish harmony and align with their core values. Career-wise, feelers tend to be in a people or communications-oriented field. They are more likely to be tactful than they are blunt. Again, pros and cons to both these things. Feelers can sometimes be experienced as too mushy or too indirect or too optimistic. Feeler, hardly. And then thinkers can be seen too task-oriented, too indifferent, or too uncaring. And the fourth thing, judging versus perceiving. So, if you are dominant in judging, it does not mean you are judgmental. And if you are dominant in perceiving, it does not mean you are necessarily more perceptive. This describes how you prefer to interact with your outer environment. If you're dominant in judging, you like to have things decided and adhered to. If you're dominant in perceiving, you prefer to leave your options open and go with the flow. So J's like to have more control on their outer world. They tend to be more timely, they're more on time, they tend to be on time. They tend to P's like to respond to their world and adapt to it. J's are more likely to keep work and play separate. P's are more likely to mix them. J's can sometimes be too rigid with what they've already decided that they can miss out on new information or new opportunities. And P's can keep their options open so long sometimes that they miss out on opportunities because they needed to make a decision before a certain time and they didn't. Oops. J's tend to have a step-by-step, more methodical approach to things. P's tend to work in short bursts of high energy. They're also highly motivated by the very end of a deadline. So they do tend to procrastinate, but sometimes their best work truly is done towards the end of a deadline. So let's say a J and a P have an assignment to do. They likely will both accomplish it. The J is going to do an equal amount of work each day typically, and the P is going to put it off and end up doing a lot of it at the end. But the quality is likely just as good. J's tend to be more naturally organized. P's are more naturally creative. In case I didn't say it enough times, there are pros and cons to every single tendency, letter, thing, trait. So here's the super interesting thing. The outer two letters of anyone's four-letter type are the easiest to guess because those are how you interact with the outer world. The middle two are the hardest to guess unless you really know someone because those are in your inner world. And it's fascinating that the outer letters of the type
Are the outer world ones, and the inner letters of the type are the inner world ones. It makes sense. It makes sense.
Hope this was helpful. So even though I broke down the building blocks of the Myers Briggs test today, the fun part that I'll get to in the future is how the combination of the four letters leads to these certain brain functions that you have. And it uses big words like auxiliary and tertiary, and I think I'm pronouncing that right, but I'm not going to get into that today because this is a practical overview.
Boy.
I'm coming! I locked I literally, oh no. Oh no, I literally just, oh my gosh, there's no key. Surely there's a key up here. Okay, you guys, I just recorded myself, locking myself out of this bathroom while the water is running in the shower. Okay, I need to find a key. How did that even happen? No, that's not a key. Oh my gosh. Okay, so the good thing is the drain is working, so it's not gonna flood. Dang it, I'm probably gonna have to call my landlord. That's gonna be so annoying. Ugh!